Alha. Who hasn't heard of Alha? Among the ancient Chandel Rajputs, no king or emperor received such immortal fame for bravery and serving their lord with such dedication. The Rajput code of ethics not only demanded valor but also required laying down one's life for one's lord and king. The lives of Alha and Udal are the finest examples of this, showing what a true Rajput was and should be. The way these two brothers demonstrated their loyalty and bravery is unparalleled in any other part of India. The tales of their battles and deeds, sung by a Chandel poet, have achieved a popularity in this region that perhaps even the Ramayana cannot match. This epic poem is famous under the name Alha, and despite the passage of 8 or 9 centuries, its appeal and widespread popularity remain unchanged. The tradition of singing Alha is widespread in this region. In the villages, thousands gather to listen to Alha, and sometimes, even in the cities, these performances can be seen. The story is more popular among the common folk than among the elite. In any gathering, you may find thousands of people sitting on the ground, utterly engrossed, as the singer, seated on a stool, sings the verses. His voice rises and falls as needed, but when he narrates the preparations for a battle, the flow of words, the gestures of his hands, the expressions of his face, and the masculine rhythm of the drum, all merge to stir the hearts of the listeners with a surge of martial fervor. The style of narration is simple and engaging, and the language is so accessible that there is no difficulty in understanding it. The simplicity of the description and emotions is the essence of its artistic beauty. Raja Parmaldev was the last king of the Chandel dynasty. This dynasty came to an end at the beginning of the 13th century. Mahoba, which is now a small town, was the capital of the Chandels at that time. The kingdom of Mahoba was powerful enough to rival Delhi and Kannauj. Alha and Udal were esteemed members of King Parmaldev's court. These two brothers were still children when their father, Jasraj, was killed in battle. The king, moved by compassion, brought them to his palace and entrusted them to his queen, Malinha, who raised them with the same love as her own child. As they grew up, these two brothers became renowned for their bravery throughout the world. Their valor brought great glory to Mahoba. The great warriors of Mahoba, whose strength is unmatched, Alha and Udal were always ready to lay down their lives for Raja Parmaldev. Queen Malinha raised them, arranged their marriages, and cared for them as her own. The bonds of loyalty and the debt of salt made both brothers the devoted protectors of the Chandel king and faithful servants of Raja Parmaldev. Due to their bravery, hundreds of arrogant kings around Mahoba were subdued by the Chandels. The boundaries of the Mahoba kingdom expanded like a river in flood, and the power of the Chandels grew like the full moon. These two warriors never rested, they were obsessed with proving their mettle on the battlefield. They could not sleep on a bed of comfort. The times were also full of restlessness. In those days, sitting idle meant vanishing from the face of the earth. Swords clashed at the slightest provocation, and rivers of blood flowed. Even marriages had become as bloody as battles. A girl was born, and disaster struck, as the lives of thousands of soldiers, chieftains, and relatives had to be sacrificed as dowry. Alha and Udal are true reflections of that turbulent era. Alha's uncle, Mahil, was a man with a black heart, harboring hatred in his mind. The glory and power of these two brothers pricked his heart like a thorn. His life's greatest desire was to bring them down somehow. He devoted his life to this noble cause. He tried countless times, set countless fires, and finally, his intoxicating machinations led Raja Parmal astray. Even iron is worn down by water. One day, Raja Parmal was sitting alone in the court when Mahil approached him. The king, noticing his gloomy face, asked, "Brother, why do you look so downcast?" Tears welled up in Mahil's eyes. A deceitful man's mastery over his emotions is something even a great yogi would struggle with. His heart weeps, but his lips smile. His heart revels in joy, but his eyes cry. His heart burns with envy, but honey and sugar flow from his tongue. Mahil said, "Maharaj, under your protection, I have no worldly desires left, but the ingratitude and trouble caused by those whom you have raised from dust to the sky, and who have now become great through your grace, are a cause of great distress for me." Parmal asked in astonishment, "Are there such people among those who eat my salt?" Mahil, "Maharaj, I cannot say anything. Your heart is an ocean of mercy, but a ferocious crocodile has entered it." "Who is it?" "I am." The king, bewildered, said, "You?" Mahil, "Yes, Maharaj, that unfortunate person is me. Today, I have come before you with my own complaint. My duty towards my relatives is nothing compared to the devotion I have towards you. Allah is a part of my very being. His flesh is my flesh, and his blood is my blood. But when a disease afflicts one's body, one is compelled to tell the healer. Allah is becoming intoxicated with his wealth. He has developed the false notion that this kingdom is sustained by his strength alone." Raja Parmal's eyes turned red. He said, "I have always regarded Allah as my own son." Mahil, "More than a son." Parmal, "He was an orphan, he had no guardian. I raised him, nourished him, cradled him in my lap. I gave him lands, made him the commander of my army. I shed the blood of 20,000 Chandel warriors in his wedding. His mother and my Malinha slept together for years, and can Allah forget my favors?" Mahil, "I find it hard to believe you." Mahil's face turned pale, but he composed himself and said, "Maharaj, I have never spoken a lie." Parmal, "How can I believe you?" Mahil whispered something into the king's ear. Allah and Udal were practicing the game of polo. In the vast field, thousands of people were watching the spectacle. The ball, like some unfortunate soul, was kicked around here and there. A courtier came and said, "Maharaj has summoned you." Allah grew suspicious. Why had the king called him at this odd hour? The game came to a halt. The ball got a respite from being kicked. Allah immediately presented himself before the king and bowed respectfully. Parmal said, "Can I ask something from you? Will you give it to me?" Allah replied simply, "Please command me." Parmal, "You won't refuse?" Allah glanced at Mahil out of the corner of his eye and realized that something was amiss. Why was there a smile on his face? Why were there flowers blooming on the fig tree? Was his loyalty being tested? With fervor, he said, "Maharaj, I am not used to hearing such questions from you. You are my protector, my nurturer, my king. At the command of your eyebrows, I can jump into fire and fight death. At your command, I can make the impossible possible. Please do not ask such questions of me." Parmal, "Bravo. This is what I expected from you." Allah, "What is your command?" Parmal, "You have the Neher horse, don't you?" Allah said, "Yes," and cast a furious glance at Mahil. Parmal, "If it doesn't displease you, would you give it to me for my riding?" Allah could not answer, lost in thought. He had just promised that he would not refuse. He had made a vow. He should not refuse. Surely, his loyalty was being tested at this moment. Refusing at this time would be very inappropriate and dangerous. That wasn't the problem. But how could he refuse? Wouldn't he be considered ungrateful? My relationship with the king is not just that of lord and servant. I played in his lap. When my hands were weak and my feet could not stand, he suffered my burdens. Can I refuse? His thoughts shifted. Granted, the king's favors upon me are countless. Every hair on my body is weighed down by his kindness. But a Kshatriya never gives his horse to another for riding. It is not the duty of a Kshatriya. I am raised and indebted to the king. I have authority over my body, and I can offer it to the king. But I have no authority over the Rajput code, and I cannot break it. Those who have considered the thread of dharma to be an iron wall are the ones who have upheld the Rajput name. Should I tarnish myself forever? Ah, Mahil has really trapped me at this moment. In front of me is a fierce lion, behind me, a deep chasm. Either I suffer disgrace or be called ungrateful. Either I sully the Rajput name or be destroyed. Well, whatever the will of God, I accept being called ungrateful, but I do not accept disgrace. I accept being destroyed, but I do not accept staining the Rajput code. Allah, with his head bowed, was lost in these thoughts. This was a moment of trial for him, on which his future depended if he succeeded. But it was no less a test for Mahil's patience. The day he had long awaited had finally arrived. This flood of joy was now cutting through the iron wall of restraint. The weak mind was triumphing over the accomplished yogi. Suddenly, Parmal asked Allah in a loud voice, "What are you hesitating about? Are you not willing to give it?" Allah met the king's gaze and said, "No, I am not." Parmal became angry and shouted, "Why not?" Alha replied calmly, "This is not the Rajput code." Parmal, "Is this how you repay my favors? Do you know what you were before and what you are now?" Alha, "Yes, I know." Parmal, "I made you, and I can destroy you." Alha could no longer control himself, his eyes turned red, and his brows furrowed. He said in a sharp tone, "Maharaj, I will always be grateful for the favors you have bestowed upon me. A Kshatriya never forgets a favor. But if you have done me favors, I have also risked my life to serve you. Mere employment and the duty of salt cannot inspire the loyalty and fervor that I have repeatedly demonstrated. But well, I now realize that I have no place in this court. Accept my final salutation, and forgive me for any mistakes I may have made out of ignorance." Turning to Mahil, he said, "Uncle, from today, the bond of blood between us is severed. If you are thirsty for my blood, then I am also your enemy." Alha's mother was named Daval Devi. She was one of those courageous and high-minded women who have made the past deeds of India so admirable. Even in that dark age, when a terrible flood of internal discord and enmity had engulfed the country, India produced such goddesses who can illuminate the darkest pages of history. When Daval Devi heard what Alha had done to uphold his honor, her eyes filled with tears. Embracing both brothers, she said, "My sons, you have done what is expected of a Rajput. I am indeed fortunate to have two sons like you who have upheld their honor." That very day, both brothers left Mahoba, taking only their swords and horses with them. They left behind all their wealth and belongings. A soldier's wealth and honor lie in his sword. The one who possesses the treasure of valor needs no other wealth. It was the rainy season, rivers and streams were swollen. The earth, enriched by Indra's bounty, was overflowing with joy. The sweet calls of peacocks echoed in the trees, and farmers, intoxicated with the wine of contentment, sung melodies in the fields. The lush greenery of the hills, the mirror-like surface of the water, and the wildflowers' vibrant beauty all exuded a youthful energy in nature. The cool, refreshing breeze from the plains, the sweet and delightful fragrance of wildflowers, and the colorful crops waving in the fields stirred a storm of desires in the hearts. In such an auspicious season, Alha bid a final farewell to Mahoba. Both brothers' eyes were red with tears as they left their homeland. It was in these streets that they learned to crawl on their knees, in these ponds that they sailed paper boats, and in these places that they enjoyed the carefree pleasures of youth. Now, they were severing all ties with them forever. The brothers continued to move forward, but very slowly. They thought perhaps Parmal had sent someone trusted to reconcile with the ones who had left in anger. They held on to hope, but when the last sign of Mahoba's hills disappeared from their sight, the last glimmer of hope vanished as well. With a heavy sigh, they spurred their horses forward. The news of their exile soon spread far and wide. There was a place for them in every court, and messages from kings began to pour in from all directions. King Jayachand of Kannauj sent his prince to meet them. The messages failed to sway them, but the meeting did. The prince's hospitality and courtesies drew the brothers to Kannauj. Jayachand welcomed them with open arms and appointed Alha as his commander. After Alha and Udal left, chaos ensued in Mahoba. Parmal was a weak ruler. The subordinate kings raised the flag of rebellion. There was no force left to keep those quarrelsome people in check. A section of the army of Delhi's King Prithviraj, returning victorious from a successful battle at Sima, camped in Mahoba. It didn't take long for swords to be drawn among the unruly soldiers. Whether the excesses were committed by Parmal's men or the Chauhan soldiers, the result was a rift between the Chandels and Chauhans, leading to a war. The Chauhans were outnumbered. The Chandels, disregarding the rules of hospitality, quenched their thirst with the blood of the Chauhans, not realizing that the entire country would suffer for the sake of a handful of soldiers. The blood of the innocent would bring consequences. When Prithviraj received the heartbreaking news, his fury knew no bounds. He stormed towards Mahoba like a tempest, destroyed Shirko, a famous town of Mahoba, and advanced towards the city itself. The Chandels also raised an army, but their spirits were crushed in the first encounter. Without Alha and Udal, the army was like a groomless wedding procession. The entire army scattered. Panic spread throughout the country. With the fear that Prithviraj would reach Mahoba at any moment, people's hearts trembled. Parmal deeply regretted his actions, but it was too late. Seeing no other option, he pleaded with Prithviraj for a 1-month truce. The Chauhan king never deviated from the rules of war. His bravery never allowed him to strike at a weak, unsuspecting, or unprepared enemy. If he had not been so strict in adhering to these rules, he might not have faced such a dire situation at the hands of Shahabuddin. His bravery became the cause of his downfall. He accepted Parmal's plea. The Chandels breathed a sigh of relief. Now, discussions began on how to face Prithviraj. Queen Malinha also participated in these deliberations. Some suggested building a high wall around Mahoba, others proposed abandoning Mahoba and moving southward. Parmal, though he said nothing, saw no other option but surrender. Then, Queen Malinha stood up and said, "Rajputs of the Chandel dynasty, what childish talks are these? Do you think you can stop the enemy by building a wall? Can a broom halt a storm? You suggest abandoning Mahoba and fleeing. Such cowardly advice is what women give. Where has all your bravery and willingness to sacrifice your lives gone?" It wasn't long ago that kings trembled at the mention of the Chandels. The Chandels' power was feared, and within a few years, you conquered hundreds of battlefields, and you were never defeated. The shine of your swords never dimmed. You are still the same, but you have lost your valor. That valor left Mahoba with the departure of the Banafal lineage. With Deval Devi's departure, even Chandika Devi has deserted us. Now, if there is anyone who can save this lost cause, it is Alha. Only those two brothers can save you in this critical time. Persuade them, convince them, for Mahoba has many claims on them. They were nurtured by the soil and water of Mahoba. They can never forget Mahoba's claims. They have been granted strength and wisdom by God, and they are the ones who can take up the challenge of victory at this time. Queen Malinha's words struck a chord in the hearts of the people. Jagna Bhatt set off to bring Alha and Udal back from Kannauj. The two brothers were about to go hunting with Prince Lakhan when Jagna arrived and paid his respects. His face reflected worry and hesitation. Alha asked anxiously, "Poet, how did you forget your way here? Is everything all right in Mahoba? Why have you remembered us poor ones?" Tears welled up in Jagna's eyes as he replied, "If all were well, why would I come to seek your refuge? In times of trouble, even the gods are remembered. Mahoba is under Indra's wrath. Prithviraj Chauhan has laid siege to Mahoba. Narsingh and Veer Singh have fallen to swords. Shirko has been reduced to ashes. The Chandel kingdom is on the brink of ruin. The entire country is in turmoil. With great difficulty, a 1-month truce has been secured, and King Parmal has sent me to you. In this time of crisis, we have no one to help us, no one to boost our morale. Ever since you left Mahoba, King Parmal has not smiled. The same Parmal, whose sadness used to make you restless, now suffers sleepless nights for months. Queen Malinha, who cradled you in her lap, weeps day and night in your memory. She gazes towards Kannauj, waiting for your return. O sons of the Banafal lineage! The Chandel's ship is sinking. The Chandel name is fading away. Now is the time to take up your swords. If you do not rescue this sinking ship at this time, you will regret it forever, for with this name, the name of your father will also sink." Alha replied coldly, "We care no more. Our name and our father's name sank the day we were unjustly exiled from Mahoba. Let Mahoba be destroyed, let the Chandel flame be extinguished, we care not. Is this the reward for our services? My father sacrificed his life for Mahoba, we defeated the Gonds and made the Chandels the lords of Devgarh. We fought the Yadavas and planted the Chandel flag in the fields of Katia. With these hands, I stopped the rising tide of the Kachwahas. We conquered the fields of Gaya, we broke the pride of Rewa. It was I who collected the tribute from Mewat. We did all this, and this is the reward we receive? My father made 10 kings wear the shackles of slavery. I have received 7 life-threatening wounds in Parmal's service and have escaped death thrice. I fought 40 battles and never returned defeated. Udal has won 7 bloody encounters. We made the Chandel's bravery famous. We elevated the Chandel name to the skies, and this is the reward we receive? Why doesn't Parmal now call upon that treacherous Mahil, for whose pleasure I was exiled?" Jagna replied, "Alha, these are not the words of a Rajput. The kingdom for which your father sacrificed his life is now being trampled under the enemy's feet. As the sons of that father, does your blood not boil? A Rajput who abandons his king in times of trouble has no place other than the fires of hell. The cloud of devastation is looming over your motherland. Your mothers and sisters are being targeted by the lustful eyes of the enemy. Does your blood not boil? Can you sleep peacefully in Kannauj while witnessing this plight of your land? Daval Devi heard of Jagna's arrival. She immediately called Alha and said, "My son, forget the past and prepare to leave for Mahoba today." Alha said nothing, but Udal, annoyed, replied, "We cannot return to Mahoba. Have you forgotten the day when we were driven out of Mahoba like dogs? Let Mahoba sink or survive, we are done with it, and we no longer wish to see it. Kannauj is now our motherland." The Rajput woman could not bear to hear such sinful words from her son and, in a fit of rage, said, "Udal, are you not ashamed to speak such words? I wish God had kept me barren so that I wouldn't have become the mother of such sons. Did I endure the pains of childbirth for these disgraceful sons who would tarnish the name of the Banafal lineage? You wretches, leave my sight. Don't show me your face. You are not the sons of Jasraj, the one from whose womb you were born cannot be Jasraj." This was a devastating blow. Shame caused both brothers to break out in a sweat. They stood up and said, "Mother, enough, we cannot bear to hear more. We will go to Mahoba today and shed our blood in the service of King Parmal. We will glorify our father's name by the brilliance of our swords on the battlefield. We will display our valor against the Chauhans and make the name of Daval Devi's sons immortal." The two brothers left Kannauj, and Daval went with them. When these estranged sons returned to their motherland, it was as if the parched fields had received rain, and broken spirits were mended. 100,000 Chandels stood to welcome these heroes. After many days, they were reunited with the land from which they had been separated. Tears of joy filled their eyes. King Parmal came barefoot to Kirat Sagar as soon as he heard of their arrival. Alha and Udal ran to embrace his feet. Tears flowed from the eyes of all three, and all the animosity was washed away. The enemy was at the doorstep, and there was no time for further hospitality. Right there on the banks of Kirat Sagar, with the advice of the country's leaders and court officials, Alha was appointed as the commander of the army. Oaths were taken there to fight and die. Brave warriors swore to retreat only after death. There, people embraced each other and set out to determine their fates. Today, there were no signs of sadness in anyone's eyes or faces. The women laughed as they bid farewell to their loved ones, and the men laughed as they parted from the women because this was the final battle. To win meant life, to lose meant death. The two armies clashed near the place where now no town remains, and for 18 days, the battle raged fiercely. The fight was intense, with both sides fighting with open hearts. The warriors vented their fury, and the armies on both sides were decimated. Out of 300,000 men, only 3 survived: Prithviraj, Chanda Bhatt, and Alha. Such a terrifying and decisive battle has rarely been fought in any country or era. Both sides lost, and both sides won. The Chandels and Chauhans were consigned to the dust forever because the outcome of the Battle of Thanesar was decided on this battlefield. The experienced soldiers of the Chauhans all perished at Aure. When they faced Shahabuddin, the inexperienced, unseasoned soldiers were brought to the field, and the result was as expected. No one knew where Alha went. Whether he drowned in shame or became a hermit, no one could say. The people believe to this day that he is alive. They say he became immortal. This is entirely true because Alha is indeed immortal, and he can never be erased. His name will live on forever.